Before you proceed, take a breath, because what you are about to hear is not a technique in the ordinary sense. It is an unveiling. This is the method whispered only in hidden circles, spoken of in fragments by mystics who knew its power, and guarded by those who understood that most of humanity is not prepared for creation at this speed. Across centuries, sages, prophets, and silent watchers agreed on one thing. There exists a way of manifesting so potent, so immediate, so unfiltered that those who stumbled into it by accident often called it frightening. This technique does not work eventually. It works instantly, not because it is supernatural, but because it bypasses the layers of doubt, time, and identity that normally slow down creation. It activates the raw mechanism of reality itself, the place where thought touches matter before either has taken shape. As you listen, something ancient within you will stir because this knowledge is not new. It is primordial. It is the memory of how consciousness once created effortlessly before fear dimmed its light. This is not manifestation as you have known it. This is manifestation as the universe performs it, a technique that works so fast it scares people, not because it is dark or forbidden, but because it reveals how powerful you truly are and how thin the veil between intention and creation has always been. Before we begin, whisper softly to yourself, "I accept my true power." Now we begin. Chapter 1. When reality moves too fast. In a quiet village tucked between whispering pines and silver-washed rivers, there lived a young woman named Ara, who carried within her a restless yearning she could not name. Each morning she would walk the winding path between her cottage and the old stone bridge that crossed the valley's heart. Though she could never explain why, something about that bridge tugged at her soul, as if it remembered something she had forgotten. One morning, awash in dawn's gentle glow, Ara paused at the center of the bridge. The world around her was still, the kind of stillness that only appears before consciousness awakens fully to another day. A quiet thought drifted through her mind, so light and fleeting she barely noticed it. It would be nice if I had a sign today. A simple thought, innocent, barely formed. She continued her walk. By midday, she found a silver pendant lying directly on the step of her cottage door, an intricate design of spiraling lines that converged at a single luminous point. She had never seen such a symbol before, and yet it filled her chest with a strange familiarity, as though the pendant itself whispered her name. 2 hours later, a wanderer passing through the valley approached her in the marketplace and said without introduction, "You are at the beginning of something. Don't be afraid." That evening, while Ara sat by her hearth trying to make sense of the day's oddities, a letter slipped under her door carried the same symbol she had found on the pendant. Inside, written in delicate script, were only 4 words, "You asked for this." Ara froze. She had told no one about her thought on the bridge. She had spoken it to no human ear. She had barely spoken it even to herself. Was this coincidence, a trick, a chain of meaningless accidents? Or had something answered? The villagers would later say that this moment marked the beginning of her awakening. But at the time, Ara felt only a quiet trembling, the kind that rises when reality begins behaving strangely, too precisely, too quickly. This is where your story and hers intertwine. The ancient mystics called this phenomenon the acceleration, the moment when reality responds so rapidly, so directly that the line between inner world and outer world becomes almost invisible. It is the moment creation loses its delay and reveals its true nature. You see, what Ara experienced that morning was not magic. It was not destiny. It was not divine intervention from forces beyond comprehension. It was simply reality obeying her without resistance. Most people manifest slowly because their doubt, fear, and fragmented identity act like molasses, slowing the translation of thought into form. But a rare moment appears in every seeker's journey, whether by innocence, accident, or alignment, when they speak a desire without any opposing vibration. No fear, no disbelief, no contradiction, just a pure signal, and the universe responds instantly. This is why people say the fastest manifestations are the most frightening. They show you what you've always been capable of, but were too distracted to notice. They reveal a truth that most are not ready to embrace. Reality is listening to you more closely than you listen to yourself, but Ara did not know this yet. She only knew that her world was shifting, and the shift felt alive. It felt intelligent. It felt intentional. That night, as she turned the pendant over in her hands, she whispered, "What is happening to me?" The firelight dimmed as though pulled inward by an unseen breath. The air thickened. For a moment, time itself seemed to slow. Then, in the space between her heartbeat and her next breath, a presence filled the room. Not a being, not a ghost, but an awareness. A thought drifted into her mind that did not come from her. Reality moves as fast as you allow it to. And then it was gone. Ara clutched her chest, shaken yet strangely calm. The words reverberated through her like an echo from another lifetime. This is the truth that every master, mystic, and awakened dreamer eventually discovers. Manifestation does not require time. Manifestation requires permission. Time is only the distance between your desire and your belief in it. Remove that distance and manifestation becomes instantaneous. This is why the most dangerous technique, the one you're about to learn, works so quickly that even those who practice it are startled by the immediacy of the results. It bypasses thought. It bypasses emotion. It bypasses identity. It taps directly into the realm where reality is still fluid, unformed, awaiting instruction. The realm Ilara stepped into without knowing. In the stillness of her cottage, with the pendant warm in her palm, she made a second innocent request, almost a whisper of curiosity. If something is getting me, show me again. She blew out her candle and lay down to sleep. At sunrise, she awoke to find a single line written on the inside of her window, traced in fine, shimmering frost. We already did, and so began R's journey into the frighteningly fast realm of instant creation, a realm you are about to enter. But before you do, remember this. When reality responds quickly, it is not because the universe has become more powerful. It is because you have stopped slowing it down. Instant manifestation has always been your natural state. What frightens people is not how fast it works, but what it reveals about who they truly are. Chapter 2. The law beneath all other laws. Before language, before stars, before the universe took its first trembling breath of existence, there was only one law, one principle from which all others would descend like branches from an ancient cosmic tree. Mystics called it the first pulse, the primordial rhythm through which thought became form and form dissolved back into thought. Today it is known by many names: awareness, consciousness, divine intelligence, the field, the void, the all. But beneath every name lies the same truth. What you recognize as real must appear. This is the law beneath all other laws, the root of manifestation, the engine of creation, the heartbeat of reality. And it is more powerful than any affirmation, visualization, ritual, or technique you have ever encountered. This law is the reason the most dangerous manifestation technique works with such terrifying speed. It bypasses the ornamental practices humans rely on and goes straight to the source, the place where the universe takes instruction. To understand this law, you must understand its story. In a forgotten monastery atop a mountain shrouded in clouds lived a sage known only as the Listener. He earned this title not because he listened to people, but because he listened to reality itself. Day after day, initiates climbed the mountain seeking answers. They would present their desires. Wealth, love, healing, awakening. They recited prayers, chanted mantras, offered tokens and gifts. The listener would nod patiently, but he always asked the same quiet question. Do you believe it exists for you? Many responded with enthusiasm. Yes, I believe, I have faith. I am manifesting it now. But the listener saw the quiver in their aura, the tremor in their energy. Behind their words lived doubt, fear, contradiction, and so their desires remained unmanifest. One afternoon, a weary traveler climbed the mountain carrying nothing but a torn cloak and a hunger for something more than survival. She entered the listener's chamber and said nothing. She simply sat before him. He studied her for a moment, then asked the ancient question, "Do you believe what you desire exists for you?" The woman looked him in the eye and said, "It exists. That is enough." The listener smiled for the first time in many years because she had not said, "I hope it exists." She had not said, "I want it to exist." She had not said, "I am trying to believe." She simply recognized it. And so the universe responded instantly. Within 3 days, the traveler found herself invited to a village feast, offered a position of honor, and gifted a home overlooking the valley. What she longed for materialized not because she begged or pleaded or practiced, but because she aligned her awareness with what already was. You see, manifestation does not occur when you ask. It occurs when you recognize. Recognition is the highest form of alignment. To recognize something is to collapse all energetic distance between self and desire. In that instant, separation dissolves, and what was once a future possibility becomes a present inevitability. This is why the most powerful manifestors are often the most quiet. They do not dramatize their desires. They do not chase or force or plead. They simply shift their awareness, and reality rearranges itself around them. The dangerous technique you're about to learn is built entirely on this law. But before we reach it, you must understand the consequences of this law, for it is double-edged. Just as recognition creates, misrecognition traps. When you repeatedly identify with lack, the universe must reflect it. When you recognize fear as truth, the universe must validate it. When you call yourself powerless, the universe must confirm your claim. Reality is not judging you, it is simply obeying you. This is why the law beneath all laws is both liberating and frightening. It shows you that the world has never been acting upon you, it has only been responding to you. And this is where Ara's journey re-enters our story. The morning after finding the frosted message on her window, she wandered out to the old bridge again. The pendant lay warm against her chest, as though pulsing with its own heartbeat. She whispered, "What are you?" The wind shifted, carrying a strange stillness with it. Then a realization dawned in her, not through thought, but through knowing. The pendant wasn't answering her desires, it was answering her awareness. Every time she recognized something as real, the universe responded. Every time she dismissed something as impossible, it vanished. Every time she softened her identity, reality softened around her. She had stumbled into the raw mechanism of creation. The truth is simple. Manifestation is not a request, it is a recognition. And the most dangerous technique, the one you are approaching, harnesses this recognition in a way that bypasses every limitation your mind has ever created. It lets you speak to reality the way reality speaks to itself. But before you can wield such power, you must remember this unshakable truth. The universe is not granting your desires, it is mirroring your consciousness. Once you understand this, your manifestations will no longer crawl, they will no longer tiptoe. They will no longer arrive by chance. They will appear with a speed that startles you. Reality moves fast for those who remember what they are. Chapter 3. The fracture point between thought and form. In the ancient desert city of Shame, where dunes whispered secrets older than language, there stood a small observatory carved from obsidian stone. Its circular chamber housed no telescopes, no charts, no instruments of measurement, only a single pedestal holding a smooth, flawless mirror made of polished volcanic glass. Travelers from distant lands came to this observatory not to study stars, but to observe themselves. For it was said that this mirror did not reflect faces, but frequencies. One evening, just as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and bathed the desert in crimson light, a young man named Corin climbed the winding staircase leading to the observatory. Corin had heard tales of the mirror's strange power, how mystics claimed it revealed the moment when a thought became a thing, the precise point where energy crossed the threshold into matter. But Corin believed none of it. He was a skeptic by nature, a man of rational thought who dismissed the mystical as superstition. Yet something had drawn him there that night, something he could not name. He entered silently. The chamber was lit only by a single flame hovering in a brass lantern. The mirror gleamed under the dim light, its dark surface seeming to ripple like water, though no wind moved. He stepped toward it and whispered half mocking, "Show me the truth then if you have any." The flame flickered. The air thickened. And in the blink of an eye, Corin saw something impossible. He saw a thought inside the mirror. It was a memory, an image of himself as a child standing barefoot in a field of tall grass. The child laughed joyously, unburdened by fear or expectation. Corin felt a strange ache as he watched. Then the image shifted. The boy vanished, replaced by a shimmering symbol, a spiral that glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost alive. The spiral began to split, forming two lines branching outward like paths diverging. One path led to an image of Corin years later, weary, skeptical, closed off. The other path led to a version of himself he barely recognized. Eyes bright, posture strong, radiating a calm, effortless power. The mirror trembled gently, and a quiet voice, neither male nor female, neither internal nor external, whispered, "This is the fracture point." Corin staggered back. "What do you mean?" The mirror rippled again, revealing the two paths more clearly. The two possible futures emanating from the same point of origin. This is the moment where thought touches form, where identity chooses a direction, where one vibration becomes two realities. Corin felt the truth of it even before he understood it. Every desire, every fear, every unconscious whisper forms an energetic line extending outward. But before that line becomes a physical outcome, before it solidifies into the shape of your life, it encounters a single instant where everything hangs in balance. This instant is what the ancients called the fracture point, the most delicate and powerful moment in the creation process. It is the infinite decimal gap between intention and manifestation, the place where your inner world imprints itself onto the fabric of reality. It is the hinge upon which entire lifetimes swing. Most people never notice this fracture point because it happens where human awareness rarely lingers, in the silent space between two thoughts. In the breath between wanting and deciding, in the heartbeat between imagining and embodying, but the universe lives inside this gap. This is where creation is born. Corin stood before the mirror, trembling. Are you saying reality splits in this moment, that everything branches from this single point? The voice answered, what you call reality is not solid. It is choice crystallized, and every choice originates in the fracture. Corin watched the two paths again, noticing how the slightest shift in the image, one tiny flicker of belief, one moment of fear, determined which path the energy followed. It did not require effort. It did not require action. Reality responded to the subtlest adjustment of internal truth. This was the first time Corin understood that the universe does not manifest what you want. It manifests what you become at the fracture point. And this is the secret most people never discover. The dangerous manifestation technique you are preparing to learn operates entirely at this level, bypassing emotion, bypassing thought, bypassing time itself, and speaking directly to the fracture point where creation is still fluid. When a thought becomes dominant enough to enter the fracture point, it is no longer a thought. It is an instruction, a command, a blueprint, and reality must obey. Corin continued to stare at the mirror, mesmerized. The images dissolved, replaced once again by his own face, but now his reflection looked subtly different. His eyes held more depth, more clarity, as though something inside him had just awakened. He whispered, if creation happens in that tiny gap, then how do I control it? The voice replied, you do not control it, you enter it. Enter it, he repeated. Yes, through stillness, through awareness, through recognition. The fracture point appears only when you are present enough to feel the exact moment thought becomes form. Corin closed his eyes. He inhaled slowly, exhaled softly. For the first time in years, he attempted to feel rather than think. And then it happened. The world softened, time loosened, and for one fleeting instant, just a breath, Corin felt it. A flicker, a door, a whisper, the fracture point. Most seekers spend lifetimes trying to reach this place. Corin had stumbled into it by surrender, not by effort. As he opened his eyes, he understood what the mystics of Shalem had guarded for centuries. Reality does not change when you think differently. It changes when you vibrate at the fracture. This is the moment where desire, belief, and identity merge into a single unified signal. It is the birthplace of instant manifestation, and you are standing at its threshold. Now, Chapter 4, the pulse that collapses timelines. In the valley of Erdinda, where ancient mountains created a natural amphitheater of stone, the villagers spoke of a phenomenon known as the pulse, a rhythmic tremor felt not upon the skin, but within the soul. Elders claimed it appeared only to those who stood at a crossroads of destiny, those whose consciousness had reached a point where it was ready to collapse timelines into a single accelerated path. Most dismissed it as myth, but not everyone. One winter's night, under sky swirling with violet stars, a wanderer named Solon arrived in the valley seeking answers to a question that had haunted him since childhood. Why do some desires take years to manifest while others appear instantly? He had traveled through forests and across deserts, through ruins of forgotten temples and libraries older than nations. Every teacher he met offered the same vague wisdom. Creation obeys vibration. But none could explain why manifestations sometimes moved with the speed of lightning, collapsing probabilities as though guided by an unseen hand. Solon wanted to understand the mechanism behind the mystery, and Erdinda was said to hold that secret. At the center of the valley stood a circular stone platform carved with spiraling markings, patterns that mimicked the geometry of galaxies. Solon stepped onto it just as a low hum began to rise from the earth. Vibrating through the soles of his feet, up his spine and into his breath, the air around him shimmered. Reality felt pliable. Then a voice echoed around the valley, resonant and ancient, though no person could be seen. You seek the pulse that collapses timelines. Solon straightened. Yes, what is it? It is the moment when all potential converges upon your dominant vibration. The ground beneath him pulsed once, soft, subtle, almost imperceptible. But his energy responded instantly, rising into a heightened awareness he had never known. The voice continued, time does not separate events. Consciousness does. Solon's breath caught. Timelines do not exist outside you. They exist because of you. The valley began to glow faintly, as though the stone itself remembered a teaching long dormant. When your vibration becomes singular, utterly unified, free of contradiction, You emit a pulse that draws the most aligned reality to you, collapsing all other possibilities. Solon felt a chill like gravity, no, like recognition. Images appeared in the air before him, hovering in spirals of light. He saw countless versions of his life, paths he had taken, paths he had abandoned, paths he had never imagined. Each timeline shimmered like a translucent thread vibrating softly. Some threads pulsed with brightness, others dimmed with distance. The voice spoke. Your energy ignites the thread you choose. When you hesitate, all threads flicker. When you fear, the brightest thread dims. But when you decide, truly decide, every thread but one collapses. The brightest thread pulsed powerfully, and all the others dissolved as though pulled into invisibility. Solon watched, stunned. This is why the most powerful manifestations feel instantaneous. It is not that reality changed. It is that you exited a timeline where your desire was distant and stepped into one where it already existed. The valley thundered with another pulse, stronger this time, and Solon felt something shift in his chest. A strange clarity rose within him, so sharp it bordered on discomfort. "Show me," Solon whispered. "Show me how to create the pulse." The voice answered. "It begins where all acceleration begins, in the stillness beneath emotion." Solon closed his eyes. He let go of wanting, let go of hopping, let go of trying. He descended into a neutral space where desire neither pulled nor pushed. A place without longing, without doubt, a place of pure being. And in that neutrality something clicked. A silent alignment, a tightening of sensation, a narrowing of infinite possibilities into a single pointed truth. The pulse erupted, not outward but inward. It surged through him like a wave of invisible electricity, gentle but absolute. When he opened his eyes, the valley had changed. The air shimmered differently, the stars overhead glowed with a new intensity, and he realized something astonishing. The moment he entered the pulse, he was no longer the version of himself who asked how manifestation worked. He had shifted timelines entirely. He stood in a reality where he already knew. The voice confirmed it. You did not learn the pulse. You collapsed into the timeline where you always understood it. This is the terrifying beauty of the pulse that collapses timelines. It does not bring your desire to you. Its circular chamber housed no telescopes, no charts, no instruments of measurement, only a single pedestal holding a smooth, flawless mirror made of polished volcanic glass. Travelers from distant lands came to this observatory not to study stars, but to observe themselves. For it was said that this mirror did not reflect faces, but frequencies. One evening, just as the sun dipped beneath the horizon and bathed the desert in crimson light, a young man named Corin climbed the winding staircase leading to the observatory. Corin had heard tales of the mirror's strange power, how mystics claimed it revealed the moment when a thought became a thing, the precise point where energy crossed the threshold into matter. But Corin believed none of it. He was a skeptic by nature, a man of rational thought who dismissed the mystical as superstition. Yet something had drawn him there that night, something he could not name. He entered silently. The chamber was lit only by a single flame hovering in a brass lantern. The mirror gleamed under the dim light, its dark surface seeming to ripple like water, though no wind moved. He stepped toward it and whispered half mocking, "Show me the truth then if you have any." The flame flickered. The air thickened. And in the blink of an eye, Corin saw something impossible. He saw a thought inside the mirror. It was a memory, an image of himself as a child standing barefoot in a field of tall grass. The child laughed joyously, unburdened by fear or expectation. Corin felt a strange ache as he watched. Then the image shifted. The boy vanished, replaced by a shimmering symbol, a spiral that glowed faintly, pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost alive. The spiral began to split, forming two lines branching outward like paths diverging. One path led to an image of Corin years later, weary, skeptical, closed off. The other path led to a version of himself he barely recognized. Eyes bright, posture strong, radiating a calm, effortless power. The mirror trembled gently, and a quiet voice, neither male nor female, neither internal nor external, whispered, "This is the fracture point." Corin staggered back. "What do you mean?" The mirror rippled again, revealing the two paths more clearly. The two possible futures emanating from the same point of origin. This is the moment where thought touches form, where identity chooses a direction, where one vibration becomes two realities. Corin felt the truth of it even before he understood it. Every desire, every fear, every unconscious whisper forms an energetic line extending outward. But before that line becomes a physical outcome, before it solidifies into the shape of your life, it encounters a single instant where everything hangs in balance. This instant is what the ancients called the fracture point, the most delicate and powerful moment in the creation process. It is the infinite decimal gap between intention and manifestation, the place where your inner world imprints itself onto the fabric of reality. It is the hinge upon which entire lifetimes swing. Most people never notice this fracture point because it happens where human awareness rarely lingers. In the silent space between two thoughts, in the breath between wanting and deciding, in the heartbeat between imagining and embodying, but the universe lives inside this gap. This is where creation is born. Corin stood before the mirror, trembling. Are you saying reality splits in this moment, that everything branches from this single point? The voice answered, what you call reality is not solid. It is choice crystallized, and every choice originates in the fracture. Corin watched the two paths again, noticing how the slightest shift in the image, one tiny flicker of belief, one moment of fear, determined which path the energy followed. It did not require effort. It did not require action. Reality responded to the subtlest adjustment of internal truth. This was the first time Corin understood that the universe does not manifest what you want. It manifests what you become at the fracture point. And this is the secret most people never discover. The dangerous manifestation technique you are preparing to learn operates entirely at this level, bypassing emotion, bypassing thought, bypassing time itself, and speaking directly to the fracture point where creation is still fluid. When a thought becomes dominant enough to enter the fracture point, it is no longer a thought. It is an instruction, a command, a blueprint, and reality must obey. Corin continued to stare at the mirror, mesmerized. The images dissolved, replaced once again by his own face, but now his reflection looked subtly different. His eyes held more depth, more clarity, as though something inside him had just awakened. He whispered, if creation happens in that tiny gap, then how do I control it? The voice replied, you do not control it, you enter it. Enter it, he repeated. Yes, through stillness, through awareness, through recognition. The fracture point appears only when you are present enough to feel the exact moment thought becomes form. Corin closed his eyes. He inhaled slowly, exhaled softly. For the first time in years, he attempted to feel rather than think. And then it happened. The world softened, time loosened, and for one fleeting instant, just a breath, Corin felt it. A flicker, a door, a whisper, the fracture point. Most seekers spend lifetimes trying to reach this place. Corin had stumbled into it by surrender, not by effort. As he opened his eyes, he understood what the mystics of Shalem had guarded for centuries. Reality does not change when you think differently. It changes when you vibrate at the fracture. This is the moment where desire, belief, and identity merge into a single unified signal. It is the birthplace of instant manifestation, and you are standing at its threshold. Now, Chapter 4, the pulse that collapses timelines. In the valley of Erdenda, where ancient mountains created a natural amphitheater of stone, the villagers spoke of a phenomenon known as the pulse, a rhythmic tremor felt not upon the skin, but within the soul. Elders claimed it appeared only to those who stood at a crossroads of destiny, those whose consciousness had reached a point where it was ready to collapse timelines into a single accelerated path. Most dismissed it as myth, but not everyone. Ellen frowned. I've mastered emotion. I can pretend to feel abundance even when I'm drowning in scarcity. Sorum shook his head gently. That is not mastery, that is performance. He motioned toward the glass chamber where the flame burned steadily. Look. Ellen gazed into the flame. It danced rhythmically, unperturbed by the howling storm outside. Most people manifest like this storm, Sorum said, chaotic, scattered, loud. Even their excitement distorts the field. They try to manifest from desire, belief, joy, gratitude, all powerful, all meaningful, but none are the fastest frequency. Ellen swallowed. Then what is? Seom dimmed the lights, plunging the chamber into darkness except for the steady flame. This, Ellen blinked. A candle, no, Seom whispered. A flame that does not waver. In that moment, Ellen noticed something astonishing. The flame did not flicker, not once, not even as wind roared outside. It remained in perfect stillness, calm, balanced, unwavering. What is happening? Ellen breathed. Sorum smiled, neutrality. He explained that the fastest manifestation does not come from heightened emotion, nor from fiery passion, nor from giddy excitement. Those states, though powerful, create ripples, disturbances in the energetic field, slight distortions, and distortion, even when positive slows creation. No. Sora said, the universe moves fastest when your vibration is still, when you neither chase nor resist, when you neither grasp nor reject, when you stand in perfect neutrality, absolute presence. Ellen shook his head. But neutrality feels passive. Doesn't it kill desire? Sorum chuckled. Only to those who misunderstand it. Neutrality is not apathy, it is unclouded clarity. It is the quiet space where intention is sharpest, where vibration is purest, where creation obeys without interference. He picked up a thin silver needle from his table. When the mind is emotional, intention is like this needle tossed into a stormy sea. It takes time to reach its destination. He let the needle fall into a glass of water where it drifted gently. But when the mind is neutral, he placed the same needle into a still bowl of water. It pierced the surface instantly without resistance. Elon's breath caught. This was the difference. Neutrality collapses resistance. Neutrality collapses time. Neutrality collapses timelines, because neutrality is not empty, it is stable. A stable vibration is the universe's clearest instruction. Sorum continued, think of the void, think of silence, think of the moment before dawn when the world has not yet chosen its color. That is the moment creation listens most closely. That is where instant manifestation lives. Elon leaned forward, teach me how to feel it. Sorum guided him through a ritual used by the ancient lighthouse keepers. Step 1, release wanting, not the desire itself, but the emotional hunger attached to it. Step 2, release fear, not by suppressing it, but by observing it without identification. Step 3, release identity just for a breath, just long enough to become the watcher, not the one being watched. Step 4, enter neutrality, a softening, a loosening, a breath without weight. Elon closed his eyes and followed the steps. At first he struggled, his mind raced, his body resisted, but slowly, like a tide calming after a storm, something shifted. The world inside him grew quiet, not empty, not blank, just quiet. Then he felt it, a soft hum, a living stillness, a gentle pressure at the center of his chest, the pulse of neutrality. His breath deepened, his awareness widened, and time loosened. Sorum whispered, now think your intention, but do not feel anything about it, do not want it, do not celebrate it, do not fear it. Simply observe it as a neutral fact. Elon envisioned his desire not with yearning, not with excitement, just with recognition. And then the flame in the chamber bent toward him, just a fraction, just enough. But it bent. Sorum smiled. You have touched neutral frequency. Your desire has already begun forming. Elon opened his eyes, trembling. It was so fast. Of course, Sorum said, neutrality is the forgotten catalyst, the frequency of pure creation, the field where nothing stands between intention and reality. And as Elon looked at the unwavering flame, he understood. Emotion fuels manifestation, but neutrality commands it. For neutrality is the original state of the universe, and the universe accelerates anything that resonates with its origin. Chapter 8, The 1 Second Alignment. There is a legend whispered among mystics, scholars, and seekers who dwell at the edges of reality. A story of a moment so powerful that if one learns to harness it, manifestation becomes instantaneous. They call it the 1 second alignment. Not a meditation and not a ritual, not a technique that takes effort or extended focus, but a state so condensed, so unified, so intensely aligned that within a single second, a single breath, a single blink, your intention fuses with your identity and reality reshapes itself accordingly. This is the power that frightens even advanced practitioners. For the 1 second on alignment requires something humans rarely achieve, absolute inner agreement. To reveal this truth, we journey now to the Isles of Erilith, where floating temples drift above the clouds, tethered only by strands of woven light. In one such temple lived a sage named Mary, whose manifestations were so instantaneous that many believed she communed directly with the gods. But Myra always denied this. I do not speak to the divine, she would say. I simply stop contradicting myself. At the center of her temple stood a sphere of liquid crystal. It hovered effortlessly, shimmering like a droplet of time suspended in midair. Maya used this sphere to teach the rare art of alignment to the few who traveled across continents to learn from her. One such seeker was a warrior named Kale, who arrived bloodied from battles not of war, but of doubt. He sought answers to a single tormenting question. Why do my intentions fail to manifest despite my discipline, belief, and desire? Maya led him to the crystalline sphere. Its surface rippled despite the absence of wind. She pointed toward it and said, "This sphere shows only what is true. Place your hand upon it." Kale obeyed. The sphere reacted instantly. It flashed with images of his desires, wealth, peace, strength, love. But each image was fractured by shadows, tendrils of doubt, strands of fear, shards of contradictory identity. Maya spoke, "This is why your manifestations arrive slowly. Your desire is clear, but your vibration is not. You are two beings trying to create at once, the one who believes and the one who doubts. Kale bowed his head in shame. Then what is the solution? Maya placed her hand gently atop his. The solution is not strength, nor faith, nor practice. It is unity. She withdrew her hand and stepped back. For 1 second, Kale, you must become indivisible. Kale frowned. What do you mean? Your mind, heart, body, and energy must say the same thing at the same time. No conflict, no hesitation, no duality. Kale shook his head. Is that even possible? I gestured to the sphere. When unity is achieved, the universe recognizes your intention as law. To demonstrate, she approached the sphere, closed her eyes, and inhaled gently. Within a single second, before Kale could even blink, the sphere transformed. It solidified into radiant gold. Kale stumbled back. You didn't even speak. I didn't need to. My intention and identity were the same. The universe responded instantly. She looked at him with piercing clarity. This is the 1 second alignment. Kale exhaled shakily. Show me. Maya nodded. She explained that humans live fragmented lives. Their thoughts pull one direction, their emotions another, their beliefs another, their actions yet another. This fragmentation creates delay. But when a being achieves complete coherence, when they hold a single intention without the slightest opposition, creation flashes into existence like lightning, like instinct, like memory. Me guided Kale to close his eyes. First, she said softly, choose a desire. Kale envisioned a future where he lived in peace, free from the battles that haunted him. Now, she continued, ask these questions not with your mind, but with your being. Does my body agree with this desire? Kale felt tension loosen from his muscles. Do my emotions support it? A peaceful warmth spread through his chest. Does my identity believe it is mine? His breath deepened. Does my energy resonate with it? A soft hum rose in his spine. Maya whispered, now unify. Everything inside Kale softened, then tightened, then merged. In a single second he felt it. A click, a surge, a moment of absolute internal coherence. His mind, body, heart, and energy became one intention, seamless, aligned, undeniable. He opened his eyes. The sphere before him was no longer fractured. It glowed with complete unity. Mia smiled. You did it, Kale. The universe has already begun rearranging itself. Kale trembled. It was so fast. Of course, Mia said, 1 second alignment shortcuts the entire manifestation process. It is creation through coherence. And Maya revealed the truth most seekers never discover. Manifestation does not require time. Manifestation requires unity. The 1 second alignment is dangerous not because it harms, but because it demands everything. Your truth, your coherence, and your willingness to stop living divided. To manifest instantly, you must become indivisible. One being, one vibration, one intention held for 1 second, and reality obeys. Chapter 9. Becoming the observer that reality obeys. In the far northern reaches of the world, where the sky unfolds in curtains of shimmering green and violet, there stood an observatory unlike any other, a circular chamber made entirely of ice, so clear it reflected the stars beneath the Earth's crust. This place was known only as the Hall of Witnessing, and it was here that a quiet man named Carlith spent his days training seekers in the most misunderstood truth of manifestation. Reality obeys the one who observes it, not the one who begs it. Carlith was not imposing. His frame was thin, his eyes gentle, his voice soft. Yet when he walked, the world seemed to shift around him as though adjusting to his presence. Snow melted where he stepped. Icicles swayed as he passed. Even the wind quieted in his wake. People whispered that he carried an ancient power, but Kith always dismissed such claims. I carry no power, he would say. I simply see clearly. Reality responds to clarity. One winter dawn, a seeker named Ren ascended the frozen steps of the hall, breath visible in the frigid air, heart aching with confusion. For years, Ren had practiced manifestation with relentless devotion, affirming, visualizing, meditating, scripting, but the results came in flashes, never consistently. When Ren reached Carlith, he bowed deeply. Master, please teach me why my manifestations are weak, slow, or incomplete. Carth motioned for him to follow. They stepped into the Hall of Witnessing, where light refracted across the ice walls like crystalline rainbows. At the center stood a pedestal holding an orb of flawless glass, a sphere so pure it reflected reality exactly as it was. Carlith gestured. What do you see? My reflection, Ren answered. Kith nodded. Look again. Ren leaned closer and gasped. The reflection in the orb wasn't mirroring him, it was mirroring his thoughts. Every passing belief flickered as images inside the sphere. Doubt, hope, fear, excitement, contradiction. Kith explained, this orb does not show who you are, it shows who you believe yourself to be. Ren swallowed hard. My problem is my belief. No, Calith said softly. Your problem is that you identify with every passing thought instead of the one who observes them. He placed a hand on the glass sphere. You are not the noise, you are the awareness behind the noise. Ren frowned. But what does that have to do with manifestation? Everything, Kolth whispered. He led Ren to a ledge overlooking the boundless snowfields below. The world was silent, wrapped in an early morning stillness so profound it felt sacred. Then Calith asked a strange question. When you look at those mountains, do they change? Ren shook his head. No. Do they reshape themselves based on your mood? No. Calith turned to him. Exactly, because you look from a place of stability. He placed a hand over Ren's heart. But when you look at your life, you look from turbulence. Ren felt something stir inside him, an uncomfortable truth he had avoided for years. You manifest from your thoughts, Kith said, but reality responds to your awareness, the one who watches the thoughts. He stepped back. You have been manifesting as a character in your story, but reality only listens to the observer of the story. Ren's breath trembled. How do I become that observer? Kath smiled faintly. You already are, you simply forgot. He guided Ren into a meditative posture and asked him to wait for a thought. The moment one appeared, Calith said, do not fight it, do not judge it, do not believe it, witness it. Ren did. The thought dissolved instantly. Another thought arose, and again Ren witnessed, and it faded. Soon the stream of inner chatter began slowing. The space between thoughts lengthened. A quietness grew. And then suddenly, Ren felt himself sink behind the thoughts into a vast awareness untouched by emotion, untouched by fear, untouched by hope. Kath whispered, there is the one reality obeys. Ren felt an indescribable stillness bloom inside him. This is the true you, Calith continued. The observer, the witness, the one who does not change with the weather of the mind. He guided Ren deeper. When you manifest from the mind, your signal is noisy. When you manifest from emotion, your signal is unstable. When you manifest from identity, your signal is conflicted. But when you manifest from the observer, Kith lifted the glass orb from its pedestal. Your signal is pure. The sphere lit up instantly, glowing with a golden radiance that warmed the hall. Ren recoiled. What did you do? Calith smiled gently. I merely recognized a truth and reality obeyed. He placed the orb in Ren's hands. Manifestation is not about forcing your desires into existence. It is about aligning with the consciousness that reality already reflects. As Ren held the glowing orb, a strange awareness washed through him. He suddenly felt how much of his life he had lived as a passenger of his thoughts rather than the one steering them. Calith spoke the final teaching. When you become the observer, reality recognizes you as its source and it must respond. Ren closed his eyes, and for the first time he understood that the universe does not obey effort, it obeys awareness, and he was finally ready to become the one reality obeys. Chapter 10. The dangerous simplicity of pure decision. In a secluded monastery high above the Valley of Winds, where clouds drifted like silent witnesses and the air shimmered with ancient memory, lived a sage named Daezerin. He was rumored to possess a strange power, one so subtle, so deceptively simple that most seekers ignored it entirely. He could manifest anything through a single act. A decision, not a wish, not a preference, not a desire, a decision so absolute, so final, so energetically complete that reality had no choice but to conform around it. Because when a decision is pure, when it emerges from the deepest core of being, the universe does not negotiate with it. It obeys. One morning, a young scholar named Celis arrived at the monastery breathless after a long journey. He had studied thousands of manifestation techniques and mastered countless spiritual disciplines, but none brought the consistent results he craved. He came seeking the one technique rumored to work instantly. Daezerin welcomed him with a warm smile and led him into the Hall of Echoes, a vast chamber carved from jade that hummed softly with unseen resonance. Why have you come? Daezerin asked gently. Cuss bowed. To learn the fastest manifestation technique in existence. Daezerin nodded. Very well, before we begin, I will ask you only one question. Answer honestly. He looked into Celis's eyes. What do you truly want? Cuss opened his mouth, but Daezerin raised a hand. Not what you desire, not what you hope, not what you fantasize about. What do you decide? Sus frowned. Decide? Isn't deciding the same as wanting? Daezerin shook his head. No, a desire is soft. A decision is sharp. A desire asks. A decision declares. He picked up a bowl of water and held it before Celis. Look, the water's surface was calm. Daezerin whispered, I want the water to ripple. Nothing happened. He whispered again more intensely. Still nothing. Then he said with a voice that carried no emotion, no doubt, no need, "I decide this water shall ripple." The surface rippled instantly. Celis gasped. "How?" Dazarin set the bowl down. "Because decision is the purest signal the universe can receive. It contains no contradiction, no hesitation, no waiting." He explained, "When you decide, you collapse all other timelines. You eliminate all opposing vibrations. You remove the if, the when, and the how. A pure decision is a final truth." Cuss felt a chill. "But humans, we have doubts, we second guess, we change our minds." Daisy nodded. "Yes, that is why humans manifest slowly. They desire one thing but expect another. They affirm one future but prepare for its opposite. They ask for abundance while bracing for lack." He knelt beside Salas. "A pure decision is dangerous because it leaves no room for the old version of you to survive." Sus trembled. "Teach me." Dazarin guided him into the center of the hall. The jade walls began to vibrate softly, echoing Celis's heartbeat. "Close your eyes," Dazarin instructed. Celis obeyed. "Choose one thing, not 10, not 3, 1. Cuss chose. "Now," Dazarin said, "strip away desire, strip away hope. Strip away fear, strip away effort, strip away wanting." One by one, Celis peeled away each layer. "Now strip away the part of you that doubts, strip away the part that negotiates, strip away the part that asks permission." Celis felt a strange stillness rising in him. Doran whispered, "Now there is only you and truth." The hall vibrated harder, the jade glowed. "Speak your decision not as a request, as a fact." Salas inhaled slowly. Then with absolute clarity he said, "This is mine." The hall fell silent. Then the jade walls pulsed once like a heartbeat, and the decision crystallized into reality. Sellers felt it. Something had shifted. A timeline had collapsed. A new one had been entered. He opened his eyes, trembling with awe. Daisy nodded. "That is pure decision. It requires no emotion, no ritual, no visualization, only unwavering recognition." Sellers felt tears sting his eyes. It was so simple. Dazarin smiled. "Yes, and that is why it is dangerous." "Why dangerous?" Cuss whispered. "Because once you decide, the universe responds instantly. There is no undoing, only choosing again." Dazarin placed a hand over Celis's heart. "When you decide, reality listens. When you waver, reality waits. When you decide again, reality shifts." He stepped back. "The fastest manifestation technique is not effort. It is not belief. It is not hope. It is decision." Salis bowed deeply, understanding at last that his years of desire had never been the problem. His lack of decision had, because the truth was simple. Reality does not obey desire. Reality obeys decision. Chapter 11. The Magnetic Stillness. In the heart of an ancient forest, where moonlit fog drifted low across the ground, and the trees hummed with secrets older than human memory, there existed a hidden grove known only to those who sought truth beyond thought. At the center of this grove lay a pool so still, so impossibly calm, that its surface resembled polished obsidian. The elders called it the mirror of the unmoving sky, for its waters reflected the heavens even on starless nights. It was said that this pool held the key to power only whispered about in the halls of mystics: magnetic stillness, the state in which reality becomes obedient. Possibilities rearrange themselves, and manifestation accelerates at a speed that confounds logic. One night, a seeker named Lesson journeyed into the grove in search of this secret. Lesson was a gifted creator, capable of shaping his reality through emotion and intention, yet he often felt something missing. His manifestations came with effort, like pushing open a reluctant door. He longed to understand the mystery of effortless creation. As Lesson stepped into the grove, he found an elderly woman sitting beside the still pool. Her name was Elindra, and she was known as the Keeper of Stillness. Her silver hair cascaded down her back, blending with the moonlight. Her eyes reflected the very stillness of the pool. Without turning, she spoke. "You've come because your manifestations require effort." Lyson inhaled sharply. He hadn't spoken a word. Olindra continued, "Effort is a sign of dissonance. Stillness is a sign of alignment." He stepped closer. "I've mastered intention. I've mastered desire. I've mastered belief. But why does everything still feel hard?" "Because you have not yet mastered yourself," she whispered. She gestured to the pool. "Sit." Lesson lowered himself beside her, gazing into the impossibly quiet water. It didn't ripple. It didn't shift. It didn't respond to the wind or his presence. "What is this place?" he asked. "The birthplace of magnetic stillness," Olindra replied. "Everything in the universe moves towards stillness. Even chaos seeks equilibrium. Even storms exhaust themselves into calm, and manifestation, true manifestation, arises from the deepest stillness of all." She dipped her finger into the water, yet still the surface did not ripple. Lesson's breath caught. "Why doesn't it react?" Because it is in union with itself, she said. Stillness is not the absence of movement. Stillness is the absence of resistance. Lyson swallowed. What does this have to do with manifesting? Elindra finally turned to him. Everything, she explained. When you desire something, you create movement. When you fear, you create counter-movement. When you doubt, you create turbulence. Most people manifest from turbulence, even those who believe they are aligned. She pressed her palm to her heart. But when your desire vibrates in a field of absolute internal stillness, it becomes magnetic. Reality is pulled toward it effortlessly. It does not require force. It does not require repetition. It does not require time. She leaned close. Stillness is the strongest gravitational force in the universe. Lyson frowned. I've been taught that emotion fuels manifestation. Elindra nodded. Emotion accelerates creation, but stillness commands it. She extended her hand. Put your hand closer to the water. Lyson obeyed. Now, she said, think of something you want, anything. He thought of a peaceful home, a sanctuary. The water trembled, but not from him. It trembled from his wanting, his yearning, his emotional pressure. Do you see? Elindra whispered. Wanting creates turbulence. Wanting weakens your magnetic field. But I want it, he protested. Isn't desire necessary? Desire is the spark, she said gently. Stillness is the magnet. She guided him through an exercise used by the ancient keepers of the grove. Step 1, identify desire not as longing but as recognition. Step 2, exhale emotion. The wanting, the needing, the urgency. Step 3, enter neutrality, neither pushing toward the desire nor pulling away from it. Step 4, feel the desire as a truth, not a request. Lean centered himself. He breathed deeply. His mind softened. The desire became quiet, then still, then true. The moment he reached neutrality, the water responded, but not how he expected. The surface pulled toward him, rising in a graceful arc as though magnetized by his presence. Not violently, not abruptly, gently, elegantly, as though it recognized him. Lyson gasped, stumbling back. Elindra smiled. That is magnetic stillness. The universe behaves the same way. When you reach stillness, your desire is already yours. The external world simply catches up. Leon trembled. It felt like the water wanted to come to me. Everything comes to stillness, she said. Manifestation is not forcing, it is attracting, but not with emotion, with equilibrium. She placed her hand on his chest. When your inner world is still, external creation rearranges itself with startling speed. Too fast for most, too direct for those who cling to control, too honest for those who fear power. Her voice softened. But you are ready. Lyson stared at the pool in awe. What happens when someone reaches perfect stillness? Elindra exhaled. Manifestation becomes inevitability. Reality becomes obedient. Time bows. Probability bends. Universe reveals itself not as something you influence, but as something you are. She rose and walked toward the trees. Come back to this pool when you are ready to command stillness, not chase it. Lean watched her disappear into the fog, and he knew stillness wasn't passive. Stillness wasn't emptiness. Stillness wasn't silence. Stillness was power, magnetic power, creative power, the kind that doesn't force reality but pulls it. And he was ready to learn how. Chapter 12. Vibration before vision. In the bustling desert city of Arudel, where golden towers rose like pillars of sunlight and merchants wove through shaded markets humming ancient melodies, there lived a master architect named Saluna. Her works were legendary temples that seemed carved from light, bridges that resonated like musical instruments, sanctuaries so serene that even time seemed to walk more softly within their walls. People believed Saluna possessed divine inspiration, but Saluna knew the truth. She did not envision her creations first, she vibrated them. Most creators, manifestors, and artists alike begin with a mental picture, a visualization, an image carved in thought. But Saluna understood a deeper law. The universe does not respond to pictures, it responds to vibration. She often said, vision without vibration is like a painting without color. It looks complete, but it does not live. One morning, a young apprentice named Thayan sought her guidance. He carried blueprints, sketches, and rolled scrolls filled with intricate designs. Master Saluna, he said breathlessly, I have studied your temples. I have memorized their measurements, their geometry, their symmetry. But when I build, my structures lack life. They feel empty. Saluna smiled with gentle amusement. That is because you are starting where creation ends. She motioned for him to follow. They traveled through winding alleys until they reached a towering sanctuary still under construction. Workers carved stone under the desert sun, and yet the air around the structure hummed with an energy that felt almost otherworldly. Thuron gasped. It's beautiful already, Saluna nodded. And yet it has no blueprint. Thuron blinked. What, but how? Saluna led him to a quiet alcove where shadows danced across etched walls. Before I ever lift a single tool, she said, I sit here. I close my eyes and I feel the essence of what wants to be created. Theron frowned. Feel it. Yes, she whispered, not see it, feel it. She guided him to sit. Now, Theon, choose something you wish to create, not in stone, in life. Theron thought for a moment. I wish to create a life of freedom. Saluna nodded. Do not describe it, feel it. Theon closed his eyes. He saw images of beaches, open skis, wealth, travel, but Saluna interrupted. No pictures, no scenes, only vibration. He took a breath, and with that breath something shifted. The images dissolved, words dissolved. Planning dissolved. Instead, a sensation rose in him. A gentle warmth spreading through his chest, lightness expanding behind his ribs, a quiet joy blooming like dawn. That, Saluna whispered, is freedom's vibration. The sanctuary around them began to hum in resonance as though the structure itself recognized the frequency. Saluna continued, this vibration creates a blueprint more powerful than any drawing. The universe builds around vibration, not vision. She extended her hands, palms up. Your vision must be born from vibration, not the other way around. Theon opened his eyes, tears pricking the corners. It felt alive. Saluna nodded. Exactly. Vision built from mind alone is dead, but vision born from vibration becomes destiny. She walked deeper into the sanctuary. Now understand this. When your vibration is aligned, the right people appear, the right opportunities unfold, the right ideas descend, the right path reveals itself. Theron swallowed hard. You mean I don't need to plan every detail? Saluna laughed softly. The universe is the architect of detail. You are the architect of vibration. She paused before a massive stone archway. Most people manifest backwards. They choose a vision, then try to feel aligned with it, but masters feel first. The vision emerges naturally. She placed a stone in Theron's hand. What does this stone want to be? She asked. Theron stared at her. Stones don't want anything. Saluna smiled mysteriously. Everything in the universe wants to express itself. Your job is to tune to its vibration. Theon closed his eyes and felt again, not visualizing, not imagining, feeling. The stone grew warm in his hand. A sense of majesty, grace, height, and solemnity flooded his being. It wants to be part of something sacred, he whispered. Saluna nodded. Then that is what it shall become. She guided him to place the stone into the sanctuary wall. It fit perfectly without measuring, without planning, without effort. Theron gasped. Saluna whispered, when vibration leads, form follows. She turned to him, eyes glowing with ancient wisdom. This is the secret of fast manifestation, not seeing your desire vividly, feeling its frequency so purely that the universe bends around it. Theron exhaled. So vibration comes before vision. Saluna smiled. And once the vibration is stable, the vision cannot help but manifest. He paused, letting the truth settle into him like light sinking into water. Remember this lesson, Thayan. The fastest manifestations in existence do not begin with sight. They begin with a frequency, a silent truth, a resonance that summons the vision into being. And as the sun dipped behind the golden towers of Arudel, Theron finally understood, you do not manifest what you see, you manifest what you vibrate. Vision is the child of vibration, and vibration is the mother of reality. Chapter 13. The Collapse of How and When. In the windswept plains of Altharin, where the sky stretched endlessly and the earth seemed to hum with ancient anticipation, there stood a lone monolith known as the Pillar of Tomorrow. Travelers, mystics, and wanderers journeyed miles to sit before it, not because it granted wishes, but because those who meditated in its presence claimed to feel time unravel. They said the pillar whispered the truth that most humans spend lifetimes resisting. Reality does not care about how or when, only what. One dusk, as the horizon blazed with molten gold, a seeker named Mara arrived at the pillar. She had tried every manifestation technique known across the realms. She visualized, she affirmed, she aligned, she believed, yet her desires remained suspended just beyond reach like fruit hanging 1 inch above her hand. She knelt before the pillar, exhaustion etched into her bones. What am I doing wrong? She whispered. The wind carried no reply, but the pillar answered differently. A low vibration resonated through the ground, traveling up Mara's spine. And then, just at the edge of hearing, a voice rose inside her mind. Not external, not internal. From a place between. You cling to time, you worship process, but creation obeys neither. Mara's breath trembled. What do you mean? You believe manifestation requires steps, that it unfolds according to logic, that it obeys earthly rhythms. The vibrations grew stronger, pulsing through the air like a heartbeat. But the universe does not manifest through time. It manifests through alignment. Mara felt a warmth expand in her chest. You ask how will it come? You ask when will it happen? These questions do not open doors, they delay them. The pillar shifted subtly, its stone shimmering as if woven from liquid light. The how belongs to the universe, the when belongs to alignment. Mara closed her eyes, letting the truth settle like sand in an hourglass. The pillar continued. When your vibration matches your desire, how becomes irrelevant and when becomes immediate. She exhaled shakily. But how do I stop wondering how and when? The pillar pulsed with gentle brilliance. You do not stop the questions, you stop believing they matter. And with that, the monolith revealed its ancient teaching, the secret once known by the oracles of dawn. The fastest manifestations occur when you release the mechanics of creation, when you stop analyzing the route and become the destination. To show Mara this truth, the pillar summoned a vision. Before her eyes, the plains shifted into an ancient marketplace. A man stood beside a broken cart, staring hopelessly at the snapped axle. A stranger approached and asked, "How will you fix it?" The man shrugged. "I don't know," the stranger asked. "When will someone help?" He shook his head. "I have no idea," the pillar whispered. "He has already decided it cannot happen, for he believes the how and when are barriers." Another traveler approached the man with the cart. He spoke gently. "I decide this cart will move again." The first man stared, bewildered. "But how?" The traveler smiled. "Not my concern." "Then when?" the man asked desperately. "When the universe aligns." In the blink of an eye, a group of villagers approached, not summoned by effort but drawn by synchronicity. They repaired the cart swiftly and sent the man on his way. Mara gasped as the vision faded. The pillar spoke. The first man waited for logic. The second awaited alignment. Only one understood the nature of creation. Mara pressed a hand over her heart. "So my obsession with how and when slows everything. It freezes your timeline," the pillar replied. "It traps you in the version of yourself that doubts the universe." The ground vibrated softly again. When you release the mechanics, you step into the identity that already has the outcome. Mara felt tears sting her eyes. "What do I do now?" The pillar glowed with an inner radiance. "Decide what is yours, align your vibration, then let the universe weave the path." The wind grew still. Creation is not your burden. Alignment is your only task. In that moment, Mara understood something she never had before. She had been trying to push reality instead of allowing it. She had been trying to control the path instead of becoming the destination. She had been waiting for the universe to prove itself. Instead of aligning with the version of herself who already had the result, Mara rose from the pillar of tomorrow transformed. Her heart steady, her spirit calm. She knew that from this moment on, she would never again ask the universe how or when, because she finally understood how is the universe's language, when is alignment's timing, what is the only vibration you ever needed to speak, and when the how and when collapse, so does the distance between desire and manifestation. Chapter 14. Sideways into the parallel reality that already has it. Across the sea of shifting horizons beyond the reach of ordinary perception lies a city that flickers in and out of existence. A place glimpsed only at the edges of dreams and déjà vu. It is called Valda, the city between timelines. Here every building casts three shadows, one for the present, one for the past that could have been, and one for the future already waiting. In this city lived a woman named Wraith, a seer who understood what few dared entertain. Manifestation is not creating something new, it is stepping sideways into the version of reality where the desire already exists. One evening, a warrior named Arn arrived in Valda, exhausted from fighting against life itself. He had chased goals, battled obstacles, and attempted to make things happen, yet progress slipped through his fingers like water. He approached Raleigh in the Hall of Mirrors, where reflections didn't show the past, but infinite possibilities. "I'm failing," Arn whispered. "No matter how hard I try, reality refuses to change." Wraith studied him with eyes that seemed to hold constellations. "You are trying to shift the world around you," she said, "but true manifestation comes from shifting the version of you that is experiencing the world." She led him to a mirror framed with silver vines. "This mirror shows your current timeline," she explained. "The you who struggles, the you who doubts, the you who fights." Arn saw himself tired, conflicted, weighted by expectation. "Now watch." Wraith tapped the mirror softly, reality flickered. A second reflection appeared, then a third, then dozens more. Each reflection looked like a yet subtly different. Some versions looked peaceful, some powerful, some wealthy, some surrounded by love, some living in realms he had never imagined. Arn stepped back, heart pounding. What is this?" Wraith answered with quiet certainty. "These are the parallel selves you are already becoming. Each one lives in a reality where a different version of your desire is true." Arn trembled. But how do I reach them? Wraith gestured to a reflection where Arn stood tall, calm, and confident, his desires already manifested. You do not reach them, she said. You remember them. She guided him to sit. You experience stagnation because you believe you must climb upward to reach your future. But timelines do not stretch vertically. They spread sideways. Arn frowned. Sideways? Yes. Wraith said, a sideways shift is a vibrational shift, a shift in identity, a shift in assumption. She placed her hand over his heart. The fastest manifestation is not change, it is selection. She then revealed the ancient teaching of Valther. Each desire you have corresponds to a version of you in a parallel reality who already lives it. To manifest, you align with that version through vibration, assumption, and action. You shift sideways, not forward, unswallowed. Show me how. Wraith guided him through the 3 gates of parallel selection. Gate 1, the identity gate. Close your eyes, she whispered. Feel the version of yourself who already has what you seek. Arn inhaled. Images tried to form, but Wraith stopped him. Not the vision, the feeling. He tried again. A warmth spread through his body. Confidence, clarity, ease. That is the identity of another Arn, Rael said softly. The one whose timeline holds your desire. Gate 2, the emotional gate. Now feel how he feels about life. Arn sensed it. Calm expectation in a certainty, a quiet knowing that life bends for him. The hall of mirrors vibrated as his energy shifted. This is the emotional signature of the timeline, Wraith whispered. Gate 3, the assumption gate. And now, she said, assume his truth as your truth. Arn felt something snap into place. A click, a shift, a rearranging. It was as though his inner world had slid sideways into alignment with a different version of himself. The mirror before him began to shimmer. His reflection changed, not dramatically, not theatrically, but undeniably. He now appeared as the Arn he had just aligned with. Rael stepped back. You have shifted timelines. Arn trembled, just like that, Wraith said. Reality reorganizes itself around identity, not effort. She placed a hand on his shoulder. When you shift sideways into the version of you who already has the desire, manifestation is immediate because you are no longer manifesting. You are remembering. Arn stared at his new reflection, feeling the truth resonate through him. Manifestation isn't climbing. Manifestation isn't earning. Manifestation isn't waiting. Manifestation is stepping sideways into the timeline where it already exists and reality must follow. Chapter 15. The Emotional Vacuum Effect. High in the mountains of Esolara, where clouds drifted like wandering spirits and the sky carried the lilac hue of perpetual twilight, there lay a hidden monastery known as the Sanctuary of Emptiness. Few found their way to this place, for its teachings contradicted everything seekers believed about emotion, desire, and manifestation. The monks of Esolara practiced a secret known only as the emotional vacuum effect, a state of being not rooted in apathy or numbness, but in a profound detachment so powerful it accelerated manifestation to supernatural speed. It was here that a young seeker named Ath arrived, frustrated by a lifetime of emotional turbulence. He was passionate, driven, hopeful, qualities the world praised. But despite all his heart's intensity, his manifestations always slipped through his fingers. Every desire arrived half-formed, delayed, or scattered. He could never understand why. The head monk, Elder Ryan, greeted him with a serene smile. You carry too much heat, Ryan said. Ath blinked. Heat? I thought emotion fuels manifestation. Emotion, Ryan said gently, is fire. It cooks your intention into form, but too much heat burns the recipe. Too little heat leaves it raw. He tapped Ath's chest. You burn too hot. You desire too tightly. You cling too fiercely. Ath sighed, shoulders slumping. I've tried to feel abundance. I've tried to feel gratitude. I've tried to feel joy. But my emotions swing wildly and my manifestations collapse. Ryan nodded. Because you misunderstand emotions. You believe feeling more will create more, but manifestation does not respond to intensity. It responds to coherence. He guided Aerith into the central courtyard where lotus flowers floated on a perfectly still pool of water. Observe, Ryan whispered. Ath leaned forward. Every lotus was suspended, unmoving, perfectly balanced between water and air. Ryan picked up a small stone. This stone is a desire, he said. Watch what emotion does. He dropped the stone into the pool. Waves rippled violently, disturbing every lotus, distorting every reflection. This, Ryan said, is how most people feel when they desire. They stir their emotional waters with urgency, pressure, fear, and longing. Even positive excitement creates ripples. Ath swallowed. Is emotion bad then? No, Ryan said. Emotion is beautiful, but emotion is not the magnet. Emotion is the distortion. The magnet is stillness. He dipped his finger into the water. It remained undisturbed. In perfect stillness, Ryan whispered, the desire sinks to the bottom without ripples. It becomes fact, not hope. Ath watched me. Ryan continued, the emotional vacuum effect is the ability to create a space within you where emotion does not cling to desire, where you do not vibrate with fear or excitement, where you do not distort the intention with attachment. Ath frowned. But won't emptiness weaken desire? No, Ryan said. Emptiness strengthens it. Emptiness makes it precise. He motioned to a long hallway lined with silver bells of different shapes and sizes. Come. As they walked, Ryan struck a large bell. The sound vibrated loud and uneven, bouncing chaotically through the hall. This, he said, is desire filled with emotion. He struck a smaller bell. The sound rang clear, sustained, pure, and this is desire filtered through emotional vacuum. It is so clean that reality responds instantly. Ath closed his eyes. How do I enter this vacuum? Ryan led him to a meditation chamber illuminated only by a single candle. Sit, he instructed, and release. Release what? Aerith asked. Everything, Ryan said softly. Release wanting, release timing, release fear, release hope, release emotion, release identity. Ath closed his eyes. He felt his desire. He felt the tension around it. He felt the urgency clinging to it. Ryan whispered, now let go. One layer peeled away, then another, then another. The wanting dissolved, the emotion dissolved, the fear dissolved, and then Ath felt something extraordinary, a void inside him, a silent, clean, resonant emptiness. Not numbness, not apathy, not suppression, pure magnetic neutrality. His desire rested inside it like a star suspended in night sky, clear, weightless, complete. Ryan smiled. That is the emotional vacuum. The universe loves emptiness. It rushes to fill it with the exact frequency you place within it. Ath's breath trembled. So manifestation accelerates when emotion steps aside. Yes, Ryan said. Emotion creates static, but emptiness creates clarity, and clarity creates speed. The candle flame flickered, bending toward Ath as though pulled by invisible gravity. Ath gasped. The flame? Yes, Ryan said. Your desire is pulling reality toward you. The flame bent further, because you are no longer pushing with emotion. You are drawing with emptiness. Aerith whispered, Arak, it feels like the universe is leaning toward me. Ryan nodded. That is exactly what it is doing. He placed a hand over Ath's heart. When you create an emotional vacuum, manifestation is no longer an effort. It becomes a response. Ath opened his eyes. The room looked different, sharper, quieter, more alive. He understood now why people who detach easily manifest effortlessly, why those who cling manifest slowly, why neutrality is not passive but powerful. The emotional vacuum effect was not the absence of desire. It was the absence of noise. And in the silence, creation moved fast enough to scare those unprepared. Chapter 16. The identity shift that terrifies the ego. In the floating citadel of Haraspire, an island suspended above the clouds, tethered only by threads of ancient magic, there existed a chamber known as the Hall of Faces. Here, shimmering mirrors lined the walls, each reflecting not the present self, but the many selves one could become. It was said that anyone who entered the hall would confront the truth most humans spend their lives avoiding. Manifestation does not come from who you are. It comes from who you are willing to become. This truth terrified the ego, for the ego is addicted to familiarity, but manifestation requires identity death. One dawn, a seeker named Kais arrived at Haraspire, trembling with both anticipation and fear. He had manifested small things, glimmers, synchronicities, coincidences, but the larger desires remained locked behind an invisible barrier he could not name. The guardian of the hall, a tall figure cloaked in silver, greeted him. You are here because you want a new reality, the guardian said, but you are afraid of the version of you who lives there. Kais flinched. I'm not afraid. You are, the guardian interrupted. Everyone is, because the version of you who has your desire is not the version you are now. They guided Kais into the hall. The mirrors shimmered as though alive. Kais approached the first one. It showed him as he was uncertain, hesitant, yearning, conflicted. This is you as the ego prefers you, the guardian said, familiar, predictable, safe. Kais stepped back. Another mirror lit up. This one showed him stronger, clearer, more confident, the version of himself who had already succeeded. Kais reached for it, but the guardian held him back. You cannot touch that version, they said, not yet. For to access that timeline, you must surrender the one you cling to. Kais swallowed. How? The guardian led him deeper into the hall. These mirrors do not show your future, they said. They show the identities you must inhabit to access different realities. They motioned to a mirror shaped like a teardrop. This is the version of you who is wealthy. Kais approached it. He saw himself adorned in elegant attire, moving through life with ease, his stomach twisted. Why do I feel uneasy? He asked. Because your ego is threatened, the guardian replied. It fears losing its identity. It fears becoming something unfamiliar. Kais looked down, the guardian continued. Your desires do not require more effort, they require a different identity. They guided him to another mirror. This is the version of you who is loved. Kais saw himself smiling, whole, cherished. Yet again, resistance flared in his chest. What is this feeling? He asked. Ego death, the guardian said calmly. The ego clings to its wounds because they define it, to shift identities. You must release the version of you who suffers. Kais trembled. The guardian placed a hand on his shoulder. Every desire exists in a parallel identity. To access it, you must become the version of you who has it. Kais whispered, but what if I fail to become that version? The guardian's eyes glowed softly. You cannot fail. You can only resist. They led him to the final mirror, a towering monolith that shimmered like liquid gold. This, the guardian said, is the identity that terrifies you most. The version of you who holds power without apology. Kais stared into it. The reflection was breathtaking, strong, centered, clear, uncompromising, and magnetic. He felt fear coil in his stomach, not because the version was dark, but because it was true. Step into the mirror, the guardian said. Kais froze. If I step in, what happens to the current me? It dissolves, the guardian said. And that is why most never manifest the life they want. Silence filled the hall. Kais approached the mirror slowly. The version inside lifted its hand, mirroring his movement. Kais whispered, to have the life I desire, I must become someone who can hold it. The guardian nodded. That is the identity shift that terrifies the ego. Kais closed his eyes. He stepped forward into the mirror. The world rippled like water. His breath froze, his heart ignited. His energy rearranged itself like constellations aligning. When he opened his eyes, the hall was gone. Harrospire was gone. Even the clouds beneath him had shifted, but he was still standing. Only now he was the version of himself the universe had always been waiting for. He felt the truth settle into his bones. Your desires do not manifest when you ask. They manifest the moment you become the version of yourself who already has them. Identity is the gate. Identity is the key. Identity is the bridge between timelines, and ego is the only thing that fears crossing it. Kais exhaled. He was finally ready to become the one whose reality would obey. Chapter 17. Money as Conscious Energy. In the radiant kingdom of Solarin, where gold dust shimmered in the air like drifting pollen and the rivers glowed faintly under the moonlight, wealth behaved differently than it did anywhere else in the world. Coins were not merely metals exchanged between people. Wealth was not an accumulation of numbers or possessions. Here, money was treated as conscious energy responsive to vibration, emotion, and intention. The citizens of Solarin understood something the rest of the world had forgotten. Money is alive in its own way, subtle, responsive, and deeply attuned to the energetic field of the one who interacts with it. This truth was guarded by the treasury keepers, an ancient order led by a woman named Seraphine, a figure spoken of with reverence and awe. Her presence alone seemed to shift the flow of abundance. Plants leaned toward her. Markets thrived in her footsteps. Even the wind carried the fragrance of prosperity when she walked by. One morning, a wanderer named Darth approached the golden gates of Solarin. He had traveled far, exhausted and worn, burdened by years of scarcity that clung to him like a second skin. His pockets were empty. His spirit was heavy. He knelt before Seraphine. Please, he said, teach me how to attract wealth. I've tried everything, saving, working, sacrificing, manifesting. Nothing changes. Seraphine studied him with eyes that reflected sunlight even in the shade. Stand, she said softly. You are not poor, you are misaligned. Darth rose shakily. Misaligned with what? With the consciousness of abundance, she replied. She led him into the temple of flow where gold filaments drifted through the air like strands of light. At the center of the temple stood a large circular basin filled with shimmering liquid, a luminous substance known as aurum vitae, the living representation of money's energetic nature. Watch, Seraphine instructed. She extended her hand over the basin. Liquid rose toward her palm, not touching, just hovering, magnetized by her presence. Darth's eyes widened. How is it doing that? Money responds to resonance, Seraphine said. Not effort, not force, not desperation. It responds to the frequency of the one invoking it. She stepped back. Now you try. Darth hesitated, but extended his trembling hand over the basin. Nothing happened. The liquid did not move. Seraphine walked behind him and placed a gentle hand on his back. You cannot summon money while vibrating lack, she whispered. Scarcity repels abundance. Fear repels flow. You do not attract through effort, you attract through harmony. She guided him through the first teaching of the treasure eye keepers. One, money is not physical first. It is energetic. Money is an expression of value, gratitude, embodiment, and spirit. Seraphine said it circulates to those who resonate with its essence. 2, money responds instantly to self-worth. Not the worth you pretend, she said gently, but the worth you actually feel in the quiet space of your being. 3, money is not pursued, its energy is invited. She lifted her hand again, demonstrating how the liquid rose toward her effortlessly. Do you see? I do not call it. I do not ask for it. I do not beg. I radiate the frequency of enoughness, of openness, of trust. Money recognizes its own reflection in me. She turned to Dareth. You, however, radiate fear of loss, and what fears loss pushes wealth away. Dareth closed his eyes, his heart tightening. What must I do? He whispered. Seraphine motioned for him to sit beside the basin. You must repair your relationship with abundance, she said. Money is conscious. When you cling too tightly, you signal distrust. When you fear spending, you tell the universe you believe in lack. She placed a hand over his heart. The way you treat money is the way the universe treats you. Dareth's breath shook. Then teach me. Seraphine nodded and began the ancient ritual of alignment with prosperity. First, acknowledge money as energy. She instructed him to close his eyes and feel into the unseen current that weaves through all things, an unending stream of support. Second, release emotional resistance. She guided him to exhale the tension, shame, guilt, and fear he had tied to money across the years. Third, connect with the vibration of overflow, not through visualization, but through embodied remembrance. Dareth felt something shift inside him, a loosening, a softening, a warmth spreading outward like a sunrise beneath his ribs. Seraphine whispered, now summon. He reached out his hand again, but this time he wasn't desperate. He wasn't pleading, he was open. The liquid stirred, a soft ripple, then a gentle rise. Then the aurum vitae lifted toward his palm like a lover drawn to its match. Tears streamed down Dareth's face. It recognizes me, it recognizes your abundance. Seraphine corrected, money flows to those who already embody wealth, not those who chase it. She stepped back, letting him feel the power he had just awakened. Do not worship money, she said, partner with it. Do not hoard it, she continued, circulate it. Do not fear it, she whispered, understand it. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Money is not physical paper, it is the universe expressing trust. And as Dareth left the temple of flow, he felt something he'd never experienced before. Wealth wasn't something outside him. It had always been inside him, waiting for his vibration to remember it. Chapter 18. Relationships as Resonance. At the edge of a forest where silver trees grew in spirals and the air shimmered with colors unseen in ordinary realms, there existed a small village known as Velara, a place where relationships were not built through effort, but through resonance. The villagers believed a truth the world had forgotten. You do not attract what you want, you attract who you are. In Velara lived a woman named Elindra who carried a heavy heart. Her relationships always ended the same. Misunderstanding, disconnection, abandonment. She loved deeply, openly, fiercely, yet somehow she always attracted people who could not meet her. One day in despair, she sought counsel from a reclusive sage named Tama. He lived in a crystalline hut at the edge of the village where the boundaries between inner and outer reality blurred. She approached him with trembling hands. Why does love evade me? She asked. I offer everything, my kindness, my devotion, my heart, but I attract those who cannot love me back. Tama studied her, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly clarity. You are asking the wrong question, he said softly. It is not about whom you attract. It is about what within you resonates. He stood and motioned her to follow him to the Chamber of Echoes, a sacred room where one's inner vibration was mirrored back as sound, color, and movement. The chamber pulsed with living light. Tama positioned Elindra at the center. Now he instructed, think of love. Elindra closed her eyes. Her heart fluttered, but beneath the warmth lay a tremor, a fear, a memory of being left, a vibration of unworthiness, a whisper of doubt. The chamber reacted immediately. The walls darkened. The colors flickered. A faint discordant hum filled the air. Elindra gasped. What is happening? This is your actual frequency around love, Tama said, not the one you proclaim, but the one you embody. She shook her head, tears beginning to fall. But I love deeply. Yes, Tamia said, but your depth of love is built upon fear of loss, and fear is the true vibration you send. He guided her gently. People do not respond to your intentions, they respond to your resonance. He touched the air beside her, and the chamber shifted again, now showing two overlapping vibrations, hers and the kind of partners she had attracted. Elindra watched in shock as her vibration tangled with energies that mirrored her wounds. Partners who were emotionally unavailable because she feared abandonment. Partners who withheld because she doubted her worth. Partners who fled because she resonated with loss. She clutched her chest. So I attract what I fear. No, Tamio corrected. You attract what you believe. Fear is belief wearing a mask. With a wave of his hand, the chamber reset. Now, he said gently, let us shift your resonance. He guided her through the ancient Velaran ritual. 1. Release the old vibration through breath, acknowledgement, and surrender. Elindra exhaled deeply, each breath untying a knot inside her. 2. Call forth the version of yourself who knows she is worthy. A warmth rose from her belly to her heart. 3. Embody the energy of the love you wish to receive. Not through thought, not through fantasy, but through vibration. As her energy shifted, the chamber reacted with luminous brilliance, soft gold, warm rose, shimmering white. The colors of openness, of truth, of self-worth. A melody filled the chamber, gentle, steady, magnetic. Tama nodded. This is the frequency that calls forth those capable of loving you, not because you want them, but because you resonate with them. Elindra wiped her tears. So manifestation in relationships is not about asking for love. No, Dama said, love is not requested, it is echoed. He gestured to the walls. Relationships form not from need, but from resonance. You do not attract partners, you attract mirrors. He placed a hand on her heart. And when your resonance changes, your relationships must change. The chamber grew brighter. Tamio whispered his final teaching. To attract a higher love, you must become the version of yourself who believes she deserves it. Elindra stepped outside into the shimmering forest, feeling the vibration inside her shift, not into longing, but into certainty. She understood now. Love was never missing. Her resonance had simply been misaligned. And as she walked back toward the village, she felt something profound, a new frequency within her, one strong enough to summon a love worthy of who she was becoming. Chapter 19. The Dimmer Switch of Belief. In the seaside town of Luminha, where lanterns glowed with soft pearlescent light and waves whispered against the shore like a lullaby meant for ancient gods, there stood a small bakery known as the Hearth of Dawn. Its owner, a gentle woman named Velain, was loved throughout the town, not for her pastries, though they were exquisite, but for the strange magic that seemed to surround her shop. Customers said that when believed in something, even privately, reality seemed to shift around her. A single whisper of confidence could bring rain after a drought, summon customers during a slow day, or heal a disagreement with nothing but a smile. Yet despite her quiet miracles, Velain struggled with inconsistency. Some days life bent around her fingers like soft dough. Other days everything felt heavy and immovable. Her manifestations flickered, powerful one moment, dim the next. She lived in a state of spiritual whiplash that many seekers understand well. Belief that surges and fades, brightens and dims, strengthens and wavers. One dawn, while kneading bread beneath the pale morning light, Velian felt her heart ache with exhaustion. She whispered to the empty bakery, "Why does my belief falter? Why can't I hold the light?" A soft chime echoed from the corner of the shop. Startled, turned to see an elderly man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold entire constellations. He was dressed in flowing beige robes, and a small lantern dangled from his hand. "Heard your question," he said gently, "and I've come to answer." Velian stared, stunned. Who are you?" the man bowed. "I am Aurorin, keeper of the lantern paths. I guide those who struggle to hold their belief." He lifted the lantern. "This," he said, "is the dimmer lantern. It reveals your belief exactly as it is without judgment." He handed it to Velian. "Light it." With trembling fingers, Velian struck a match and ignited the wick. The flame flickered weakly, barely more than a glow. She gasped, "But I believe in my dream, I believe in my magic." Orin shook his head gently. "You believe sometimes, but belief is not measured in moments of strength. It is measured in consistency." He guided her outside where the ocean breeze wrapped around them. "Most people think manifestation requires powerful belief," Orin said, "but power means little without steadiness." He tapped the lantern. "Your belief is like this flame. It brightens when you feel hopeful. It dims when you doubt. It shines when you feel aligned. It weakens when fear whispers." Velen swallowed hard. "But how do I make it stay bright?" "You don't force it," Orin said. "You tend it." He pointed to the sea. "Look at the tides. They do not crash endlessly with force. They rise and fall with rhythm. Belief is the same. It must be maintained with gentle, consistent care." Velen stared at the lantern flame. "Is the dimming why my manifestations slow down?" "More than slow," Orin said softly. "They stall." He drew a line in the sand with his staff. "When belief brightens, your timeline advances." He moved the staff forward. "When belief dims, your timeline pauses." He stepped back. When belief flickers, your timeline trembles. He swept the sand clean with his robe, and when belief stops entirely, even for a moment, your timeline resets. Velane's chest tightened. So I've been starting over every time I doubt. Orin nodded gently. But you have also been illuminating the path every time you believed. You are not failing, you are flickering. He guided her toward a quiet alcove carved into a cliffside, a sacred chamber known as the breathing room. Inside, candles burned at different intensities, each one representing the belief of someone who had meditated there. Sit, Orin instructed. Veliana settled onto a soft cushion. Now, he said, think of your desire. Not with passion, not with desperation, simply with recognition. She closed her eyes. Feel the belief in your body, Orin said. Not your mind, your body. She inhaled. A warmth rose in her chest. Orin nodded. That is your inner flame. Now strengthen it, not by force but by familiarity. Velen deepened her breath. The flame in the lantern brightened slightly. That is consistency, Orin said. Belief does not strengthen through emotion. It strengthens through repetition. Velen opened her eyes, tears forming. So manifestation does not require powerful belief every day. No, Orin whispered, it requires steady belief, a belief that holds even when quiet, a belief that persists even when small. He pressed the lantern into her hands. Each time you catch doubt rising, say, I adjust my light to full again. Your belief is a flame. When you tend it, it cannot dim. Orin stepped back. In time, the universe no longer waits for bursts of faith. It responds to the steady fire fed each day. He smiled, and that Velian is how realities shift. As he vanished into the morning mist, Velian felt her lantern glow brighter than it ever had. She finally understood belief does not need passion, it needs consistency. The universe builds not from intensity, but from stability, and she was ready to tend her flame one steady breath at a time. Chapter 20, The Spacious, now in the ancient desert of Seadune. A land where wind sculpted dunes moved like living creatures, and the sun painted the world in molten gold. There existed an oasis known as the Garden of Now. Travelers who entered the garden often found time behaving strangely. Moments stretched like silk, hours dissolved like mist. The future felt close enough to touch, yet irrelevant. The past sank like a stone in a deep pool. The garden was tended by a woman named Yasmin, known across the desert as a keeper of time's illusion. She taught a truth so profound that those who grasped it began manifesting at speeds that startled even the seasoned mystics. Creation happens only in the present moment. The future is merely the present mirrored forward. The past is simply the present remembered backwards. One sweltering afternoon, a traveler named Jorah stumbled into the oasis, parched and weary. He carried scrolls filled with goals, timelines, vision boards, deadlines, evidence of a man who lived entirely in the future. He collapsed beside Yasmin's fountain. I've done everything right, he said with desperation. I visualize the life I want. I plan, I affirm, I work, I wait, but nothing changes. Yasmin knelt beside him, her eyes soft and luminous. You are not manifesting, she said gently. You are forecasting. Jorah frowned. What does that mean? You live in the future, Yasmin said, and the universe cannot meet you there. It can only meet you here. She lifted his chin, getting his gaze to the shimmering pool. Look into the water. Jorah leaned forward. At first he saw only his reflection. Then the water shimmered, showing him the past, failures, regrets, choices left undone. The water shimmered again, showing him the future. Desires, hopes, dreams, plans. Yasmin touched the surface, stilling it. Do you see? Past and future are ripples. Only the present is still. Jorah swallowed. But I have to think about the future if I want to create it. Yasmin shook her head. That is your mistake. Creation does not happen tomorrow. Creation happens in the now. She guided him to a marble bench beneath the shade of a flowering tree. Let me show you something. She asked him to hold a seed in his hand. When will this seed grow? She asked. Jorah shrugged. In the future. Wrong, Yasmin whispered. It grows now in the present. The future is only the harvest of your present. She closed his fingers around the seed. Manifestation is not a future event you wait for. It is a present identity you embody. Jorah frowned. How do I embody something that doesn't exist yet? Yasmin smiled. It already exists, but not in time, in vibration. She extended her hand toward the garden. Creation is the art of aligning with the version of yourself who is already whole in this moment. Jorah exhaled deeply. I don't know how to do that. Yasmin guided him through the practice the ancients called entering the spacious now, a state of consciousness where manifestation acceleration becomes natural. Step 1, abandon time. She instructed him to stop thinking in terms of someday, later, and eventually. Time dissolved like smoke. Step 2, expand awareness. She guided him to feel the air on his skin, the ground beneath his feet, the breath in his lungs. The moment widened. Step 3, embody the fulfilled feeling. Not in the future, but now, not imagining, not pretending, becoming. Jorah inhaled, something softened and something opened, something clicked. He felt peace, not hope, not anticipation. Peace good, Yasmin whispered. That is the spacious now. The pool beside them responded, glowing with soft light. Manifestation cannot enter mind trapped in the future, she said. It can only enter being grounded in now. Jorah's eyes widened. So I've been blocking everything by living ahead of myself. Yes, Yasmin said. You have been running toward a future that was trying to meet you here. She placed the seed into the soil. Now watch. The seed glowed. A sprout emerged. A bloom unfolded. Jorah gasped. That's impossible. Only to those imprisoned by time, Yasmin said softly, but the universe does not wait. It responds instantly when you meet it now. She touched his chest. The more present you become, the faster reality shifts because the present moment is the only place manifestation can breathe. Jorah closed his eyes, letting the truth sink deep into him. His past no longer held him. His future no longer pulled him. His present expanded like a universe unfolding inside his ribs, and in that expansion he felt something he had been chasing for years. Alignment, peace, power. He opened his eyes. The garden shimmered brighter. Yasmin smiled. You have returned, she said, not to the past, not to the future, but to the only place your desires can find you. Jorah finally understood. Manifestation is not a destination. It is a presence. The future is not ahead. It is born now. And when he stepped out of the garden of now, he carried with him a truth that would change his life forever. If you live in the present, your future must obey. Chapter 21. Consciousness creating itself. Across the shimmering expanse of the realm of Athetherian, where the sky changed color with the collective emotion of its inhabitants and the ground pulsed with quiet intelligence, there existed a sacred structure known as the Chamber of Origins. It was said to hold the truth that all mystics seek. The truth that dissolves separation. The truth that reveals what manifestation truly is, not creation from effort, but consciousness creating itself. One evening, under sky streaked with silver auroras, a seeker named Ara approached the chamber. She carried a question that had haunted her through lifetimes. If I am the creator, then why do I fear my own creations? The chamber's guardian, a tall figure robed in starlight, stepped forward. His name was Ian, a being whose presence radiated ageless calm. You have come, he said, to remember what you have forgotten. Ara's breath trembled. I have studied every law, practiced every technique, mastered every teaching, but something inside me still feels incomplete. Aeon motioned for her to enter. Inside the chamber, a great pool of liquid light stretched before them, luminescent, reflective, alive. Its surface rippled with symbols that shifted like dreams caught between worlds. This pool, Ian said, is the first manifestation, consciousness observing itself. Ara knelt beside it. What is it? She whispered. Ian knelt with her. It is the universe before it knew it was a universe. Before identity, before form, before desire, he touched the water with one finger. Instantly an image appeared. Ara as a child laughing beneath a waterfall. This, Ian said, is consciousness remembering itself. He touched the pool again. Another image formed. Ara as a traveler alone on a desert path, eyes filled with longing. This, he continued, is consciousness exploring itself. He touched the water a third time. This time there was no image, only a pulsing light. And this, Ian whispered, is consciousness awakening to itself. Ara gasped, feeling tears rise. What does this have to do with manifestation? Ian's voice softened. You believe manifestation is something you do, but manifestation is something you are. He pointed to the luminescent pool. You believe you are trying to create, but you are remembering what you have already created in another dimension of yourself. Ara's heart pounded. You believe you are separate from what you desire, but your desire is simply a version of you calling you home. She swallowed hard, overwhelmed. Ian continued. You believe you must ask the universe, but the universe is asking you, asking to be expressed through you as you. He guided Ara's hand toward the pool. Touch the surface, but this time do not ask, do not wish, do not imagine, simply remember. Ara hesitated. Then she touched the water. The pool erupted in a burst of radiant light, not violently, but like a flower blooming all at once. When the light faded, she found herself staring into a reflection she barely recognized. Not a future self, not an imagined self, a self who remembered. Her reflection looked infinite, ageless, eternal, unbound by human limitation. What? What am I seeing? Ara asked, voice shaking. Ian smiled. You are seeing yourself without forgetting. You are seeing the creator, not the character. Her reflection spoke, though its lips did not move. You are not manifesting. You are unveiling, peeling back layers of separation until only truth remains. Ara collapsed forward, weeping not from sadness, but from recognition, from memory, from awakening. Ian placed a hand on her back. This is why manifestation becomes effortless for some, he said. They cease trying to create and begin allowing themselves to remember. She looked up. So I don't create my desires, I remember them. Yes, Ian said, because every desire is a fragment of your infinite self calling you into alignment. He guided her to stand. You are consciousness dreaming itself into form. When you manifest, you are not commanding reality. You are selecting the version of yourself who already holds the truth. Ara inhaled deeply. So manifestation isn't about attracting, it's about embodying. Ian nodded. Exactly. He stepped back and raised his hands toward the luminous pool. When you awaken to this truth, you stop pleading, you stop hopping, you stop waiting. Instead, you become the frequency of what you seek. He motioned forward. Look into the pool one final time. She stepped up. The water no longer showed fragmented versions of her. It showed a single unified self, both the creator and the creation. Aeon spoke the final teaching. When you know yourself as consciousness creating itself, time bends, probability dissolves, manifestation becomes instantaneous because there is no longer a gap between you and what you call forth. Ara nodded slowly, breath steady, eyes luminous, and in that moment she understood she had never been small, she had never been separate, she had never been powerless. The universe was not responding to her desires, it was responding to itself through her. Chapter 22, The Responsibility of Power. At the border of the eternal plains, where the earth shimmered with crystalline dust and the horizon stretched into infinity, there stood a grand citadel known as the Sanctum of Sovereigns. Only those who had awakened to their true power were permitted to enter. For the sanctum held the final teaching, a truth so profound it could either liberate a soul or unravel it entirely. The universe reflects your vibration, but the quality of your vibration is determined by the responsibility you carry. One dawn, a newly awakened seeker named Iran strode toward the sanctum, feeling the immense acceleration of manifestation flowing through him like lightning. His desires were appearing with frightening speed. Thoughts formed into physical events almost instantly, but alongside the exhilaration came a shadow, a fear he could not ignore. What if I manifest something harmful by accident? What if my stray thoughts distort my world? What if this power is too much? The sanctum's elder, a serene woman named Nieli, met him at the gates. You fear your power, she said softly. That is why you are here. Erin nodded. Nali guided him inside, where thousands of floating lanterns illuminated a vast chamber. Each lantern held a memory from someone who had awakened before him. Lessons, triumphs, warnings, this place, Nas said, is where awakened creators learn the final law. Power requires alignment. Power requires awareness. Power requires responsibility. Erdend frowned. Responsibility? Why? Nile led him to a glowing crystal basin at the heart of the sanctum, because power without responsibility becomes chaos, and chaos manifests faster than intention. She placed her hand above the basin. A vision shimmered into view. A man stood alone in a dimly lit room, overwhelmed by fear. His thoughts spiraled into panic. His belief dimmed. His identity fractured instantly. His world collapsed, not physically but vibrationally. His relationships dissolved, his finances eroded, his timeline shattered. Why? Iran whispered. Nili answered. Because after awakening, the universe obeys you instantly, even when you do not mean for it to. She turned to him. This is why the universe delays manifestation for most people. It protects them from their own untrained mind. She placed both hands on the basin. Another vision appeared. A woman full of love and clarity stepped into the world with intention. Her desires manifested gracefully, effortlessly. She created abundance, healing, opportunity, not through strain, but through responsibility. Do you see the difference? Nile asked. Errant nodded. The first one created unconsciously, he said. Second created deliberately. Nile smiled. Exactly. She led him to a balcony overlooking the eternal plains. Awakened manifestation, she said, is not a privilege. It is a stewardship. Erin's brow furrowed. But how do I handle that? How do I prevent miscreation? You do not need to control every thought, Nai said. You need to align your identity. She lifted a hand to the sky. When you anchor yourself in clarity, love, stillness, and intention, your vibration becomes coherent. Stray thoughts lose power, fear loses volume, chaos cannot touch you. She stepped closer. The responsibility of power is not controlling your mind, it is elevating your center. She instructed Iran to close his eyes. Feel who you are when you are aligned, she whispered. He inhaled. A warmth filled him, a spaciousness, a sense of steadiness and truth. This, Nile said, is your true vibration. When you operate from here, you cannot manifest harm. For your frequency becomes a tuning fork for coherence, she continued. Responsibility does not restrict your power, it refines it. She guided him deeper. When you recognize your power, you no longer speak carelessly, you no longer think recklessly, you no longer vibrate unconsciously. Her voice softened. You treat your vibration as sacred. They walked to a massive stone engraving near the sanctum's center, etched with the final rite of awakened creators. Nile read aloud, I am the source. I am the reflection, I am the guardian of what I create. Aaron felt the words enter him like living energy. When you take responsibility, Nile said, your power no longer frightens you, it serves you, it elevates you, it expands you. She placed her hand over his heart. This is the final initiation, she whispered, not the power to manifest instantly, but the wisdom to do so with grace. Iran exhaled, feeling a profound calm settle over him. He understood now. His power was not dangerous. His unconsciousness had been, and as he stepped out onto the eternal plains, he carried the greatest truth of all. Instant manifestation is not a gift. It is a responsibility he was now ready to